Hello and welcome to the Perry Connection. I'm so happy to welcome Rachel Richter to our studio.
Well, it's
welcome.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm so pleased that you wore your apron because whenever I come in on Main Street to your office or to your business, Olive and Ink, you have on your apron.
Yeah, it's like my staple piece that I wear every day, and it's very convenient because with working with the printers and paper, there's constantly dust and toner and things like that are getting on me, so it's one of those pieces I put on and I don't have to worry about it for the rest of the day.
Well, it's great, and I'm so glad you wore it because you bring two things together. You're a businesswoman, but you're also an artist.
Yeah.
And so it's fun to talk about those two aspects of your life, and of course you're also a wife and a mother.
Of course.
And a member of the community.
Yes.
So let's get to know Rachel Richter.
Okay.
Now, you just recently opened a successful business on Main Street.
Yes, I just opened a print shop. I say we, but I really mean I because I'm the only one there.
And I should say this is in Perry, New York.
Yes, it is in Perry, New York, right on Main Street, across from the town hall, on the corner of Lake and Main Street. So we do graphic design. We do print setup, promotional product setup, and just about anything that could be used for advertising or screen printing, things like that. So for the most part in-house, we will set up graphic designs from scratch. So you can bring in an example of something you like or kind of just wing it, maybe bring in some personal photos, things like that. Set up the graphic designs and then select the paper that you're looking for or the way you'd like it finished. And then I literally print it on my printer in-house and cut it and put it together and have it ready for you to pick up within a week or two.
You do another important aspect, which is you lay it out.
Yes.
I mean, that, a lot of people can bring you pieces, but you're really the glue that says, okay, artistically they'll be happy if this is here and that's there. And
exactly. I consider myself a little bit of a solution person because a lot of times people come in and they're like, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it and I don't know how to get there, how to put things together so it looks nice. So usually I'll take all these pieces and parts that they bring me, whether it's just color ideas or maybe photos and things like that. I will either scan their photos in or recreate graphics, put them together, and then show them a proof so they've kind of got an idea and then they can tweak things or they can keep them the same. So yeah, and it's cross-platform too. So for individual, sorry.
No, educate us.
No, you're good. So for individuals, a lot of times it's like a one piece or two pieces. Maybe it's a bridal shower or wedding invitation. So they would like maybe an invitation, a thank you card, RSVP, those types of things to be similar, have the same theme, something like that. But then with businesses, it's a little bit different because you may want business cards and brochures, which are print related, but then you also need online media ads or you need promotional products like mugs or keychains and things like that. I do all the setup in-house, and then for promotional products, I try and work with regional vendors. So, for example, mugs, I work with a place in Fairport. So I'll set all the graphics up and I'll send it in a format that they can use for printing. And then they'll have a complete product. So I'll go and pick it up. But their marketing is very cohesive. So it'll be very similar colors, similar styles. So it's literally from A to B.
And you really help a lot with branding.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first I just want to show an example of something that someone could even do for this holiday.
Yes.
So this show will probably be aired in November.
Perfect timing.
And so if a person is saying, I want a unique gift for my family, they could have a calendar, right? So they would bring in their pictures, 12?
Yes, actually, mine is a little more custom because I made it for myself.
And your family?
Of my family. What I would probably suggest for a customer is that you choose 12 of your favorite photos or maybe 3 to 4 photos that you could put on one
We
page
showed
together.
this photo.
That's actually Silver Lake.
Yeah, I love this. This
Yep,
is
that's
your
Reese.
daughter Reese,
Yep,
who's in 4th grade.
She's in 4th grade.
All right.
Yep, that was last winter. We went out. Actually, that's a lie. It was 2 winters ago, because it was January, so it was the beginning
Okay.
of last year.
All right.
But
Yeah. So obviously that's a good January picture. Oh, and then February.
yep, that's Ava.
Ava.
She's 4. So we were picking. I think it was like, I can't tell what kind of flower it was, but whatever spring flowers come. That's probably a March photo, but
Oh, but it landed in.
I tried to rotate the
Flexibility
girls.
is a good thing.
Yes, I tried to rotate the girls' photos so they weren't all one kid month to month.
Good. So tell me, what would it cost, just, if a person is interested in your services, to bring in 12 pictures, to have a calendar made for the whole family, personalized?
I actually need to put some quotes together for that.
Okay.
This one I made last year for myself, so I didn't really have a lot of cost of goods related to it. So I'm not positive. So I'll have to get some quotes together and different paper styles and different ways people might want to format it. That one has a Christmas letter in the beginning, so some people may not want to do that or not need to do that. So the page counts might change too.
Sure. So the whole idea is be flexible, be creative,
Yep.
and expect a good product
Yep.
at the end.
And I'll try and fill in the blanks. So if there are questions that you might not think of or pieces of the puzzle that you may not have considered, I'll try and put those pieces together.
Right.
So
Good. So that would be a way that, say, a non-business listener or watcher of the program could use your services.
yes.
But if a business owner is, for instance, talking about branding. In fact, we recently had on the show Mike and Jeff Fitch,
Oh yeah.
who are involved with the Kaufman program
Yes.
and Fast Track program here in Wyoming County, and they work with a lot of budding entrepreneurs, and I believe you are one of them.
Yes, actually, I took that class with both of them, and it was phenomenal. It was it got me on the right track to starting my own business. So that was amazing. And there are a lot of small businesses who are just starting up that don't have that branding. And I've gotten a couple emails here and there about doing some logos and things like that.
Well, speaking of which, I just happened, since you didn't bring your portfolio here, I just happened to have my logo for my business, which is called Jessie Barth Enterprises. And so whoops, let me straighten that up a little bit. There we go. So in 2011, when I was just really trying to get a sense of branding, we contacted you, and you came up with this beautiful logo. I knew I wanted it to be JB because I've written a book called Be, and it's all about being. But can you just sort of, we'll keep that up. So can you just sort of, tell me the thought process? Bring that up again here. How you did that?
Well, there were a lot of pieces that went into that. So you had given me the information that you wanted it to be the JBE, but because the B was so important because of the book that you had just written, we emphasized that obviously a little bit more.
Here, let's hold that so just they can see.
And in your current marketing, I believe that you were using, you had brought in the flower, which I believe is a magnolia flower, without knowing for positive based on what you were using. So we were trying to coordinate the colors and the imagery that you were already using into your logo.
And it's sort of about life, you know. I mean, what I personally work on is life, which is why I'm so interested in the life of the community and your life.
Yeah.
But I thought it was brilliant the way you took it, and you had the fluidity, and then you have this nice bee, and all of a sudden it's blossoms.
Exactly.
So when did that aha, I know what to do, come? How do you get there?
A lot of times it's trial and error. So you have a path that you want to go down, but it's until you literally have the different letters for that font and then the image itself, and you just play around with where the positioning works best on the page for the most part. Even just like so much as a letter being smaller gives you a little bit more space, or straightening something out gives you a little bit more curve. So those things, it's really just a lot of trial and error, putting the pieces together and finding which ones fit best.
And how do you feel when you present it to someone? Are you sort of nervous? Are you expecting they'll definitely want to tweak it and retweak it? And
rough drafts are always a good start for me, because a lot of times people will come with really vague ideas. Either they know exactly what they want, but it's maybe not communicated clearly, or they literally have no idea and they're like, well, I like the color blue. So you have to create something from nothing. So that rough draft period is great because you literally take a couple of really rough ideas and find out which direction they want to go. And then once you kind of have a general direction, maybe they like the color, but the font is something that they're not really interested in, you can change out some of those pieces until you evolve into a finished logo. So, and customers are interesting too, because there are some customers that specifically want exactly what they've put down. And then there are customers that they want you to do something, but then when you show them something 10 times better than what they had in mind, they're thrilled. So it's feeling out which customer you have, if they specifically want something or are flexible.
Do you charge by the hour or
Yes.
by the job? Okay.
It's a little bit of both. So it kind of depends. Like invitations and business cards and brochures, for the most part, I have down to kind of a, I don't want to say a set fee, but I know how long it takes me to put those things together, so I can put a structured price quote together for time a little bit better. I do charge $50 an hour, but that is kind of flexible based on the job. So when I quote something like a logo, I might say, based on the information I have, I think this will take 2 to 5 hours. Or if you're looking for more of maybe like a marketing strategy where you want to incorporate your colors and logos into an entire piece and then build off of those things, that may take more time. Or if there's a certain demographic you're trying to reach or things like that, where there's more information that goes into it than just making a pretty logo.
You really have a fascinating job, because you're working with ideas and then you're bringing them to life. And then you have to be a diplomat and sort of like a nursemaid, you know what I mean, and a businesswoman. That takes a lot of talent.
I don't know about talent, but I think I like working with people, and I like listening, and I like fixing problems. So I think the skill set I have works really well with that, because it seems to make people happy with the product they receive.
Good.
But
and how's business?
Business has been really good.
Good.
I was a
Glad
little
to hear
nervous when I first opened, because I wasn't really sure how well received I would be. I kind of knew that there were customers in the area that I had worked with before, and then we have really good relationships and worked on other projects together. So I was excited about that, but I didn't know how many people would be interested in like the invitations and the cards and things like that. And so far, every month has had something different. So we had, in the first couple of months that I was open, the Silver Lake, the Perry Main Street Association did a bag drop for Silver Lake. So there were a bunch of Main Street businesses that were putting flyers together to have stuff in the bag drop for Silver Lake. So that was a month where there was print that was needed. And then there have been some businesses that I've done print things with. Now, a couple months later, they're looking for additional print things or additional promotional things. So there's a decent amount of repeat and then word of mouth that's really building now.
Right, and that's it. And you're just trusting the sort of the universe that it all works out.
Yeah. I do a little bit of advertising, and I try and stay very active on social media. So Olive & Ink has a Facebook page, a Twitter page, Instagram, Pinterest, obviously the website, which is oliveandink.com.
Good. And let's talk about that, Olive & Ink.
Yes.
That's and that I sort of wore this dress because I knew we would be talking about olive.
Yeah.
And can you tell us why that is the name of your business?
Part of it has been with me for a very long time, and the other part was kind of in the making. When I was in 6th grade, I went from a private school to a public school and moved across town, kind of.
And where did you grow up?
I was born in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is near Milwaukee. And then I was very young when we moved to Colby, Wisconsin, which I'm sure everyone knows of Colby cheese.
Oh, yes.
That is where that was invented at. And actually, the dairy farm that I grew up on was owned by the man who invented Colby cheese. So if you ever go to Colby, Wisconsin, there's a beautiful plaque in Colby, and not a little one, like it's a ginormous plaque that is dedicated to Mr. Colby. So I grew up for the most part on a dairy farm there. And then when I was about 12, we moved. My father has farmer's lung, which is he's allergic to molds in like corn silage and hay and things like that. So he wasn't able to farm anymore.
Right.
It wasn't going to work. So he worked at a cheese factory for a very long time, which I'm sure is funny to people to hear in Wisconsin that there's so many jobs related to the industry, but
cheese in Wisconsin.
Exactly. So he worked at a mozzarella cheese factory for Kraft. It was actually Foremost Farms was the name of the milk plant. But anyways, so then when we moved there, I started public school, and they had a great art program, which was great because at the school I was at before was so much smaller. It wasn't cultivated quite as well.
So you had some good teachers.
So I had some good teachers. Actually, I had one teacher. Actually, through junior high and high school, it was the same art teacher. But he was great, and I started putting a bunch of artwork together. But I was really skittish about letting people see it because it was very personal. And they all had personal stories behind them and things like that. So I had gone through a book. I was reading Daniel Steele's at the time, which I'm sure is, is what it is. But in one of the beginning pages, there was a signature, either a thank you or in memory of, and then it was signed Olive. And I was like, that's just the best name ever. I don't know any Olives. This couldn't be confused with anyone else. So I started signing all my artwork Olive. Eva.
Oh,
which
to
actually
be anonymous.
Yeah, to be anonymous.
And why Eva?
Eva, I was actually born on my great-grandmother's 100th birthday, and her name was Eva.
Okay.
So I felt that was a nice
Honored
tie.
her.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful name.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Actually, and our youngest daughter, Ava, is kind of a nod towards Eva as well. But so I started using Olive, and most anything you'll see that I've painted or drawn will have Olive on it. I've since dropped the Eva because it was really hard with my brushes to sign the longer signature. But so when I decided I wanted to open my own business, I'm like, I have to have a really good name because otherwise it'll be confusing and people won't know. And I knew that people in the art community knew me as Olive. So I was like, well, I could use Olive as part of the name because it was such a signature piece to me and personal. And then ink was just kind of a throwback to the old school press printing that started it all. So, and in my store too, I wanted to have a very industrial feel, like you could literally watch somebody printing off a press in the back. Granted, I don't have press printing because it's quite the operation.
Yeah, but you have the apron.
I have the apron. I'm ready. So
well, that's wonderful to see that individuality coming through. Well, now, so how did you get here to Western New York?
So that's a fun story as well. I didn't like the cold in Wisconsin because it's winter.
So you came here.
So it's winter 6 months of the year. It's cold winter too. It's like I remember in high school we had a week off from school, not because it was snowing, but because it was 70 below with wind chill. Oh. So when it's like 2 below and school closes, I kind of laugh under my breath and think, well, I've had it worse than that. So and so it was too cold. So I decided I was going to go to school.
You must have been really northern Wisconsin.
It's considered central Wisconsin, but it's just below where they would start to consider northern Wisconsin. Okay. So yeah, it's pretty chilly up there. They get a lot of Canadian drafts that come through.
Okay.
But
so go on.
So anyway, I went to school in Lexington, Kentucky.
You mean college?
Yes.
And why did you go there?
One of my friends, she had family there, and she had already decided to go down there too. So I was like, well, if nothing else, and mostly because I didn't have any other southern schools in mind, and that was the only school I hadn't had any information on. I started out at the Lexington Community College with the plan of, once my 2 years of basically core classes were done, to switch over to the University of Kentucky, because they shared the same dorms, their campuses were right next to each other. Nice. So affordability-wise, that's why I started out at the community college. And I actually started to become an art teacher, so art education. And I realized I wasn't going to be able to teach kids that didn't want to learn. So I was like, if they are interested in art, I'm very excited and I'm going to have a ton of fun. But the kids who didn't want to be there but had to take art class, I didn't know how I was going to handle that. So I switched over to graphic design and changed colleges. I started going to Spencerian College, which is also in Lexington. And that was a graphic design based degree.
So, and just very, very practical.
Yes.
So what was your first job upon graduation?
Actually, and that kind of brings me back to the New York part. So when I was going to school, I was selling suits at S&K Menswear. As I started out as part-time, then made it to full-time, and then eventually sales manager and the general manager. And my husband actually worked at the same store I did. And he was graduating from college, and I think was working on his master's actually at the time, and was like, why don't we move back to New York and we'll get jobs there, and
he's from New York.
He's from New York.
Okay.
So he's like, I've got it all figured out.
So did you meet him in college and get married?
Yes.
Okay.
And we met, I think I had 2 semesters left, and he I think had just started his master's, the master's program. So we hadn't married yet, but we were going to get married when we moved. We actually got married in Ohio, but we were going to get married after we moved back to New York. So his family's from Fillmore, so we moved here kind of blindly, hoping things would work out. And then that's how I started at the Warsaw Penny Saver.
Okay,
that was my first job in graphic design.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and your husband's name is?
Is Adam Richter.
Adam Richter. And what does Adam do?
He has a degree in fire science. Actually, his degree is about this long, and I can only ever remember the fire science part because there's so many parts into it. But he works in Rochester for T.Y. Lin International. It's an architecture and engineering firm. He works in the code compliance department.
Oh, okay.
So he makes sure that the plans that come in are fire safe. So they've got enough exits, things are accessible. Basically, the layouts are the way they need to be.
Which you never think about
Which you
until
don't
there's an
think
emergency.
about. Exactly.
And then you're grateful for the
He's the one when
Adam
we go to a
Richters of the
restaurant, he
world.
counts all the exits and makes sure that we're near the door. So I know I'm always safe. I don't have to worry about it when I walk to
Was
the
he ever
restaurant.
involved in a fire himself that he was influenced by that?
I don't believe so. I think he was one of those little boys that literally said, when I grow up, I want to be a fireman.
Okay.
And that's exactly what he did. So, and he loves his job. So
That's great.
it is great.
So you started at the Penny Saver in Warsaw. What year was that?
That was in 2007. I think it was June of 2007
Okay.
or July.
Okay.
So,
All
yeah.
right. Good. And I met you about 4 years later, I think.
Yeah.
Or so. Caroline Dupengeisser said, "Oh, your girl. If you need a logo, it's Rachel Richter."
Yeah.
So let's look at some of these pictures. I think we're getting to know you better.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about you is your laugh. You know, you really enjoy life, don't you?
I do. Actually, part of switching over to my own business, I really wanted to have joy every day. So I can honestly say, if nothing else, even if I'm the poorest person going, I have tons and tons of joy.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful.
those are the best parts of life.
And that makes you rich.
Yeah.
And the money comes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good. All right. Can we just sort of see here? I don't know. If I hold this back. So this.
Okay, so actually so that's me in the pink.
You're in the pink.
I'm in the pink. My husband's in the top left.
That's Adam.
Yeah, Adam's in the top left. His sister is in the bottom left, and his brother is in the top right.
Okay.
And then Ava is the one who is being christened.
All right. Good. So you have 2 daughters.
Yes, Ava is 4 and Reese is 9.
Okay.
Actually, and they're in this photo over here. So that's Reese. She was about 5 in that photo, and Ava was only a few weeks old in that photo.
Good. Maybe you can just go a little bit lower because there's an interesting picture here, or right down here.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about that?
So on my dad's side of the family, they are...
What name is that?
I believe that is the Stress side.
The name is Stress?
The Stress, yeah. On my dad's side, there are the Snyders and Boyers, which are primarily German, and then the Stress and the Greys, I believe, are mostly Swiss German.
Okay.
but I believe it's the Stress side of the family that is right there.
Okay.
In Sugar Creek, Ohio, which another fun fact about cheese. So cheese kind of is my life. In the United States, Swiss cheese is the only place that is called Swiss cheese. Everywhere else is called Alpine cheese.
Oh,
so the first
interesting.
2 places in the United States Swiss cheese was made was in Wisconsin and in Sugar Creek, Ohio. So this is Sugar Creek, Ohio in this photo,
Okay.
where my dad's side of the family is from.
Okay.
And we dress up in Swiss costume every year in
That's
October.
the red skirt and
Yep.
white
And
top.
those are based on the Alpine region that the families are from. So different families will have different costumes on based on their region.
So colorful.
So yeah, and a lot of times there'll be like a blue or a green combination. But yeah, so that's actually in last year was fun because we had 3 4-generation photos that we were able to take. My grandmother, my father, myself, and my girls in that photo.
Okay.
And then on my mother's side, her parents, my parents, myself, and my daughter, and then on my husband's side,
Wow.
his father, his mother, and then the girls and my husband. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. And then we have another photo here that I think is very special. This is your brother and sister.
Yeah.
And what is your sister's name?
My sister's name is Bethany, and my brother's name is Carl.
And you're the oldest of the 3.
And then I'm the oldest of the 3. Yep.
Okay. And you were telling me some interesting things about Carl.
Yeah, so that picture was actually taken the weekend that he graduated from boot camp in California. And after he graduated, he was in California for a while, and he did 2 tours. He did one, his first tour was, I believe, in Iraq, and then his second tour was on the Muse, which basically does a worldwide tour. So they stop like in Australia and Dubai and all these countries in between. So then when he got back, he was in California for a couple more years, and then he moved to Minnesota with his wife, and then they had their son there. And when he was just about done, I think he was at his 7-year mark, he was going to get out of the Marines, and they asked him to stay because they had a position in D.C.
In
Washington.
Our nation's capital.
Exactly. As a fuel specialist, filling Marine One, which is the president's helicopter. So he decided, he was kind of up and down about it because he didn't know if he wanted to stay in much longer, but he did take it, and he spent 2 years in D.C. fueling the president's helicopter.
And he got to meet our president.
He did get to meet our president more than once, as far as I know, but he definitely had a very nice photo op the last few months that he was there.
Good.
So, yeah. And
Good.
they've since moved home.
And back home to Wisconsin?
Actually, to Minnesota.
Oh,
They're
really?
in the midst of trying to move back to Wisconsin, but they are in Minnesota right now.
Do you ever miss Wisconsin?
I miss the summers sometimes. Most of the rest of the year, no, because it's so cold. But this, there's nothing better than clear blue skies without a cloud in them, and being able to see like 15, 20 miles in any distance. There's where my parents are, there's about 15 miles until the next town, and you can, on a good night, see the McDonald's sign that glows 15 miles away in town because it is so flat. But yeah.
Well, we're glad you're here
Well, thank
in
you.
Western New York and Perry, New York on Main Street with your wonderful business, Olive and Ink, and your joy and just your vitality, and I'm sure you'll do very, very well.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I love Perry. It's been the most welcoming community. We moved here about 8 years ago, and Perry has always brought us in with a huge welcoming smile, and it was so exciting for me to be able to open a shop on Main Street because it was so full
Yes.
circle.
Yeah,
So
good.
I'm very excited.
Well, Rachel Richter, you're just a joy. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Sure, and thank you for joining us. And be sure to stop in and see Rachel on Main Street in Perry, New York. You won't be disappointed.